Hi, it's Matt from Hummel Aircraft. We're going to talk to you today about getting your E-prop and your spinner put on your V-twin. Keep in mind that anything that is propeller specific, please refer to the E-prop manual and their website. But I'm going to tell you how we do it on the Ultra Cruiser V-twin. But again, anything prop specific, please refer to them. So the propeller comes to you as you're seeing here on the table. The three blades are wrapped in bubble wrap, the hub, and then the protractor is in the little black box. And then the spinner and the back plate we make special for this application. So I'm going to go through how to get the spinner cut and how to assemble the propeller. Okay, if you pull the back of the hub off, as supplied, and you take the spinner, we've got a pilot hole already in the spinner that matches the reduction drive. You might have to open this hole up just slightly from the manufacturer. I know the camera makes it look oval shaped, but it's not. It's just the way the camera looks. Open up just a little bit to fit the reduction drive. If you look through your socket set, you can probably find a socket that fits perfect just like that, and that'll work as a nice centering tool. And then we're going to drill these 5/16, and then we're going to go back and open them up just a touch more because it's the friction that really drives the spinner anyway, and we don't want to have friction when we're torquing down the bolts. We want the bolts to the clamping force to be the friction, not dragging through the spinner. So we're going to go ahead and drill these to 5/16, and then just a hair oversized, so the next fractional 1/64 over. That's the next step. Okay, we've got the holes drilled. Just double check that the bolts all fall through nice and cleanly, that there's no hang-ups. One of the most important things with the spinner, the whole airplane for that matter, but the spinner, make sure you polish the holes really good. Do not use a countersink and relieve the corners because it makes the metal thin. Drill them careful and then polish them up. Something to mention on the hub, from the manufacturer there's dots on everything. Keep everything in that orientation when you put it together because they balance it at the factory. Try to keep it that way. One last thing we have to do is we have to open this hole up just a little bit so we can get a wrench in there to tighten the reduction drive. There's a hole. The video's a little hard to see. There it is. There's a hole, so we're going to open that up just a couple sizes, so we're going to do that now. Okay, we ran the hole up to about 3/4 of an inch. It's good. This kind of bit works perfect because it keeps everything centered. So we don't have to worry too much about balancing. And it does make a really nice hole. A little thicker material than the bit is really designed for, but it works well. So go ahead and run that up to 3/4. The base plate or the face plate. And again, that gives us access to align the reduction drive later. Okay, next thing up is we're going to cut the spinner dome. So if we take the circumference all the way around the dome by using the back plate, and we divide it by 3, it ends up, we have a distance of 7.395. Okay, so it's just a hair more than 7 3/8. So what we're going to do, as you can see, I have a mark on here already. I've got a single mark. We're going to peel this tape. We're going to stick it on here and get our 3 marks for our 3 openings for our V-twin. I made this little template out of metal, but I have a paper one that is full scale. If you need it, make sure you just email sales@hummelaircraft.com if I didn't send it to you or I forgot, and I'll certainly send it to you. You can print it on your printer, and you can lay it up around the edge of the bottom of the spinner dome, and it gives you the location for the nut plates. So this is a relatively close cutout to what you need. This is set to be clear for 13.5 degrees. If you set the prop up a lot more or down a lot more, the opening will be slightly different. So this will get you close, but keep in mind you want to have some clearance around the prop anyway, probably a good 1/4 of an inch, because the prop does flex quite a bit. This E-prop moves quite a lot. It flexes in and out when it flies on purpose. So we want to have room so it doesn't rub. Okay? And in case you're not sure, we're going to show this a little bit later, but the spinner goes on this way. The back plate faces forward, unlike the Volkswagen where it faces aft. And then after you get everything in, then the dome will go over the top. Nice fit like that. So that's how it's going to look. So I'm going to lay this out, and then I'm going to cut the grooves, and I'll get back to you in a second. Okay, you see I've got the cutout marked. Keep in mind that this engine turns clockwise, so the blade angle here is correct. As it spins clockwise, it's taking a bite, so make sure you do it the correct way. Remember, if you have an Ultra Cruiser with a half Volkswagen, it turns the other way, so don't get yourself mixed up. But the V-twin turns clockwise from the pilot seat. So it's going to spin this way, so it's going to be taking a bite of air. Okay, so that makes the shape this way. So I'm going to cut these out, but do not drill these holes yet. I'll talk to you about that why in a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these. You cut a little bit undersize, and then come in with a sanding disc, or I guess you could use a file, but a round little drum sander on a drill works really well. You want to clean this up nice, and then we're going to polish it up real nice. Can't stress enough how important it is to polish the edges. You don't want any saw marks. You don't want to use tin snips. I mean, you can use tin snips to cut up nearby, but your final cut should be totally smooth. These are spun, and they do kind of have a little bit of a grain pattern to them. And if you have a crack, that can start easily if you don't have a nice smooth surface in there. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to trim these out. And we're going to come back to you after that, and I'll show you what they look like polished up, and then I will show you how to assemble. Okay, so we're back. Take the propeller, stick it together. I'll show you how to do that here when I take this off. But you're going to stick the propeller together and turn the blade up until it's pretty much touching the back plate, and then put a little block of wood maybe to hold it. That'll get you pretty close to where it's going to be. And then after you cut it out, again, I didn't polish these yet. Just do a rough cut and make sure everything clears. Give yourself some good clearance around about like that, because like I said, the propeller does move around a little bit. Grab the propeller a little bit and just wiggle it like this. And you'll notice that it's got some room to move. That's what you want. You want a little bit of room to move everywhere. Okay? You don't want it so tight. Now after you assemble it on the airplane, if you find a spot that looks really close, you'll have to take it off and then use a little sanding wheel and clean it up. Okay? But the dome pops off straight up and out. Hard to do this one-handed. And you can kind of stick the propeller together like that. Again, try to keep the colors all lined up. I'll talk about this later, but the end of each propeller blade also has a color code that matches the color code on the hub. All right. So again, if you pitch it up till that pretty much touches the back plate, that's going to be pretty close to your flight angle. Going to get you pretty close. Okay. So I'm going to polish these up now, and then put it back together and make sure we still have clearance, and go to the next step. Okay, there's the final fit of the spinner. I don't know if you can tell, but those are all polished. The openings are polished really good. Polish them so good that you don't see any marks. And if you were to slide your fingernail on the inside of the edge, there's no marks, there's no grooves, there's nothing. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before we mount the propeller, we're going to go ahead and drill these holes that we marked, but only through the dome, not through the back plate yet. Okay, so we're going to drill those, then we're going to mount the propeller next. Okay, so we take the back plate, the flange facing forward, we put the hub on, we take the blades, we look at the end of each blade, there's a sticker to correspond, there's a green, there's a yellow. The colors might be different on yours, but make sure you match the blade with the sticker that's on the hub. So this one's got a yellow sticker on the inside that matches this yellow. And then we also want to make sure that we line up any other colored dots that there are. So we put this on the pilot. We just finger tight these. Just get them finger tight for now so they stay on the airplane at this time. Okay, then we're going to measure out 15 3/4 of an inch and put a piece of tape on each blade. So we're going to do that now. 15 3/4 of an inch and a piece of tape. Okay, so I'm sitting down in front of the airplane. If you have a tail dragger, you might want to just prop the tail up. It makes it a little bit easier. So this is the protractor that comes with the E-prop. So what we're going to want to do, scooch around here, we're going to want to, with the airplane relatively level, it doesn't make that much difference. We want to set the protractor on here, and we want to hit calibrate. So it's going to set it to 0. So that puts our reference plane as 0. Then out here we put these tape marks exactly at 15 3/4 of an inch. So I put the outside of the tape at 15 3/4 so I can repeat it. So then we line up our protractor with the edge. Okay, and we're going to hold the protractor a little bit. We're going to turn the blade until we get about 14 degrees or so. So that's about 14, pretty good place to start. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten up the 2 bolts for this blade. We're going to use a torque wrench. This is an important tool here for the job. For this first set, we're going to go like maybe, I don't know, 100 inch-pounds. Not very much, just enough to kind of hold the angle. Okay, we're going to do these 2. Okay. We're not really concerned if the angle holds exactly, because after we get a little bit of force here, we can tweak them. Okay, so we do that much. Take the blade off, the protractor. Okay, so an important thing, if you've adjusted this blade, don't grab it and use it to turn the engine through. Grab a blade you haven't done yet and pull it through with the next blade. Okay, so we pull that. Okay, we want to get, there's a bubble level on top. Get it relatively level for now. Again, we're just rough tuning this for now. And then we look at this side. We don't have much. So we hold on to the protractor. We give the prop a little bit of a turn. And there's 14 degrees, 0.3 or so. Good place to start. Come back up to the hub. Put our, 70 inch-pounds, 100 inch-pounds. You'll feel, I'm not even letting it click. I'm just running up until I start to feel a little bit of friction, and that's a good place to stop. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind, make sure you take this off when you move the propeller, because if you forget and it hits the floor, this plastic breaks, then you won't have it. Okay? So again, I did the top 2 blades. Sorry about the camera. I'm going to turn the 3rd blade uphill where it goes. I'm going to set my protractor on the edge of my tape mark. I'm going to move the prop a little bit until I'm pretty much level. I'm going to look here and I've got 6 degrees, which is not nearly enough. There's 11. There's 14-ish. Again, we're just talking about round numbers here at this point. Okay, so I'm going to pull it up, and you can see the blade moves a little bit when I'm tightening it, and that's okay. Okay, so now you've done that. Now we're going to fine tune it. So a good place to start on this airplane, V-twin, is 13.5 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this blade. We're going to grab it in close at the hub, set it to 13.5 degrees. We're going to torque the 2 bolts nearest to this blade, maybe 120 inch-pounds. We're trying to get up to 180 inch-pounds as our final torque. Okay? So we're going to do a blade, we're going to do the next blade and the third blade, and then we're going to go around. We're going to torque them up to 150. We're going to check them again. We need the angles to all be within whatever angle you come up with. So we want to have 14 degrees, real hard to hold this steady. But we want to be the first digit after the decimal place, which is 0.5 or 0.1, I should say. All the blades should be within 0.1 of each other. That's what the eProps book says. Any more than that, I'm assuming that it'll vibrate real bad. I've not noticed any vibration with these, but we've always tried really hard to keep them very, very close to 0.1 or less, plus or minus 0.1 actually, or less. With 3 blades, it's a little harder than 2, right? Because you got a third one to deal with. But keep doing that process around and around and around and around. And once you're happy with them, you go in and torque them all to 180 inch-pounds. So what I would do is I would, your final torque, I would do this one, then this one, this one, this one diagonal, okay? And then turn the prop through a few times and do it again. And we have a note in our information, after you run this on the ground for probably an hour, torque them again and check them. This is kind of a elastomeric wood composite hub of some sort, and I'm guessing that it kind of sets in to position after it runs a little bit. I found that I've had to retorque after an hour or so. The blade pitch hasn't really changed any, but the bolts did need to be retorqued. Only use the bolts that they send. These are metric. Make sure you only use the ones they send. They don't talk about any safety wire because it's torqued up to a torque spec. Okay? So you need a 13 millimeter wrench. Don't use a 1/2 inch. Please use 13 millimeter because these are metric bolts. Okay, so that's the idea, and I'll let you go ahead and I'll finish this up and then we'll pop the spinner on. Okay, so the last step of the spinner, slide the spinner on. Make sure you're kind of centered in the between the prop blades. Make it flush on the back. Go ahead, now that you've got it in place, go ahead and drill through with an 1/8 inch and cleco that in place. When you take it off, it's a good idea to mark like the letter A or something under this and an A on the back plate so you can keep it in the right orientation. And then after that, you're going to put nut plates on the inside of the back plate in those 6 spots and the number 8 screws, and you're done. And that is the spinner cutout, installation, and the prop install on the V-Twin.